Guys, there's a queue again. So much queue. So what I'm gonna do is, let me make another display capture the other screen. I forget which screen it is. Yeah, that's the right one. That. Do. Oops. This. Do this. Frick, I put that too low down. God damn it. Hold on, hold on. Hello. I'm gonna adjust my face cam because it's a different bird this time. How are you all doing? There's a queue again. Suddenly everyone wants to play. But what I'm gonna do is art. And my second monitor. Emote art. Oops, I clicked something. What did I do? I got rid of our screen. There we go. Hello. Can't believe there's a queue again. I checked like literally half an hour ago and there wasn't. Whoop. Silly, silly. But gives me the opportunity to do some of this. So I'm going to grab the art that I was doing. Copy image. As big. Oops, resized it. I think I'll do curtsy first. That's a good one. Procrastinating. Oh, hell yeah. What you procrastinating on? To finish 12 drawings for a research paper. Ooh, drawings of what? What kind of stuff do you draw for a research paper? That's not right. I need to... God damn it. I'll make it work. Make it work. How have I managed this? I've messed it up. What did I do? It was working literally a second ago. Sorry, I'm messing with my drawing pen. Make it turn on. Ah, it's clicking things. Oh my god, there's so many things here. What the hell? I don't know what any of this means. How have I managed this? Oh, I think I fucked up Photoshop. Let's start that over. Illustrations for each chapter is about Dutch grammar, and the illustrations illustrate different parts of the journey. Oh, that's cool. Wait, you should I did a video a long time ago that got me a job actually, but it was all about hi Brandon. It was all about the history of the word map and like maps in general. And I had a whole part on the first ever dictionary, which was in Dutch. It was it a Woordenboek something Nederlands taal or something like that. It was like the first ever dictionary. Woordenboek der Nederlands taal. Does that sound right? I don't speak Dutch, so I don't know how it's pronounced or anything, but nailed it? Hell yeah. Oops, I need to force quit Photoshop because it's fucked up everything. Fuck you, Photoshop. How do I make it go away? Brandon, help me. Brandon, help me, I killed it. Photoshop it fucked up. Dictionary of the Dutch. Yeah, Woordenboek der Nederlands taal. That's, I don't know how it's pronounced. But that was the first ever dictionary use of the word map. And it was really cool. And now I think my stream is gonna freaking break because I just broke my whole computer by trying to use Photoshop. Oh my god. It's the worst. You're really cool. You're really cool. How do I make Photoshop stop? Brandon, how do I force quit Photoshop? Because it's breaking everything. Oh? Something's happening. Research is on combining English and German and Dutch grammar to improve how they're taught. Oh, that's cool. Do you learn like are you in like education? Is that your goal? Pronunciation was pretty good. Thank you. I think I like looked up the pronunciation, but that was like I did that like 3 years ago. That was my project. It was for my favorite professor that I've ever had, who unfortunately died before I could finish my project. So that was really sad, and I didn't ever get to show him the finished project, but it was a whole video on how there's no real definition of the word map. It's just what we make it, and anything can be a map, you know? I would show you the video if it weren't for the fact that I've completely broken my whole internet. Just now. It's a nice short word. Oh. Let me find, Cart? Yeah, I think I wrote about that. I'm gonna find the video because I can't even view your channel. I did open the task manager. You're the task manager. And task. It didn't work. Show you guys my map video though, while we're waiting.
Building your online business?
Can you guys hear this? Is it a?
Go to Wix.com.
I might need to swap. I need to make sure that. Can you guys hear from Chrome? You can hear.
Products. Showcase them dynamically. And
like this. Can you hear it?
Track your inventory. Accept multiple secure payments. And design your...
Click on it again and click End Task. Oops. Right, clicking on End Task. I've been clicking on that. It didn't work. I did try it on the uncollapsed task. It's just totally broken everything. I can tell it's closing, like there's a loading thing. But I'm showing you guys my video. This is my project that was maybe one of my favorite things that I've ever done. Yeah. Doing watch party of my own things. It's the first ever like thing like this I did.
A really simple question to answer. You probably already have a definition in mind. Maybe you're thinking, well, a map is a piece of paper that accurately shows the geography of a region. Perhaps you think a map is a tool that tells you how to get from one place to another place. Whatever the case, you're probably wondering why I even asked the question. Cartographic scholars generally have the same thought, even in the case of one research group, going so far as to respond, the answer seems so simple and so obvious that it is silly even to ask. But is it really that obvious? To say that would imply that if I showed a picture to a bunch of map scholars, or even just a bunch of college students, they could all tell me if a picture is or is not a map, and they would all give the same answer. But take this engraved mammoth tusk from the village of Pavlov in the modern Czech Republic. Does this look like a map to you? Maybe not, but according to archaeologists, the curved markings are supposed to represent the Thaya River and surrounding clay hills. The tusk may have been used as a directional map for hunters in 25,000 BCE. How about this diagram? Famous psychologist Carl Jung calls this the map of the soul. It has map in the name, but if you ask Carl Jung for directions, he probably won't say, ah yes, turn west at your ego, walk the length of 2 anima, and you'll reach your destination. With all of the maps that pose strange exceptions to the mean, maybe it's harder to answer the question, what is a map, than it is to answer the opposite question, what isn't a map? Before we continue, it's important to tackle the question, why do we need to define the word map? And that's not easily answered. There are plenty of things that don't necessarily come to mind when you hear the word map, but you still wouldn't easily be able to explain what prevents them from being maps. And that makes cartography complicated. Picture you're a museum curator, trying to develop a new exhibit that represents the artists of New York City. If you have a very narrow definition of art, maybe you'll focus on famous painters who lived in the city. Rothko, Basquiat, Pollock, or the sculptors and architects of New York's many statues and skyscrapers. Sure, all of these are universally recognized as art, but can you really claim to be representing the whole of New York's artistry without showcasing street art and graffiti? In limiting your definition of art, you run the risk not only of ignoring the historical and cultural relevance of modern artistic styles, but also of enforcing an entrenched canon of art, which likely excludes artists identifying as indigenous, black, brown, disabled, queer, or a member of any group that doesn't match with the canonized notion of art. For a cartographer or historian, a more exclusive definition of the word map leads to a more exclusive understanding of history. In order to attain the most inclusive definition of this word, we have to look at what it has meant throughout history.
Wow.
So let's go back to the beginning.
Brandon.
The word map is a shortened form of the Middle English mappamundi and the French mappamonde. Both of those words are derived from the Latin words mappa mundi. Mundi, and subsequently the English monde and French monde, translates to mean of the world, from the Latin mundus, which means world or universe. The words mappa, mep, and map are Punic in origin, meaning tablecloth, napkin, or flag, coming from the Mishnaic term menafa, for a fluttering banner or cloth. The term mappamundi was used in the late 1300s, during which world maps were painted on vellum and cloth scrolls. Before the Age of Exploration, world maps, which generally just consisted of Europe, Africa, and Asia, were not used primarily to identify geography or travel routes. Instead, maps like the Hereford and Ebsdorf mappamundi documented history.
Napkin of the world. Hell yeah.
On the people, flora, and fauna
eat the
of
world.
distant lands. It makes sense then that they should be called mappamundi,
Charizard.
essentially the world on a cloth. Especially for the royals and aristocrats who commissioned these expensive maps, who would likely never travel beyond their territory, owning a representation of the world on a cloth was pretty close to owning the world itself. The shortened form of mappamundi, map, was first used in 1527, defined as a drawing upon a plane surface representing a part or whole of the Earth's surface or the heavens, with the various points drawn in proportion and in corresponding positions. The concept of proportional maps, with accurate distance measurement, was born with this definition, or at least reborn. The Greeks had been there, done that. This was likely in correspondence with the cartographic endeavors of Gerardus Mercator, the namesake of a style of world maps projected as unrolled cylinders. In 1543, Andreas Vesalius developed the first anatomical atlas, mapping, proportionally, the skeleton, nervous system, and
was fun to
organs
make.
of the human body. With an ironic similarity to the Latin translation of Mappamundi, Vesalius' book was called De Humani Corporis Fabrica, or The Fabric of the Human Body. At this point in history, the Americas had been discovered, and maps became more functional.
I think it's one take mostly. I did a couple of parts that I just had to redo.
In 1586, the verb form of map was first used, meaning to make a map of, just like Mercator mapped the world. Keep in mind that this use of the word specifically refers to the literal drawing of a map, as opposed to the figurative sense. If Mercator had just traveled the world and written down his discoveries and measurements, he wouldn't be mapping anything until he physically drew the squiggly continental coasts on a scroll. The figurative version of the verb appeared in 1610, in the sense of mapping something out. A sailor could now map out his voyage, and an astronomer could look through a telescope and mentally map a constellation. Along with the verb form, the 1600s also led to an update of the noun map, which added the figurative definition, epitome, or detailed representation of anything. So now we're going into abstract territory. Maps in the 1600s didn't need to be on cloth or depict the world. The terrestrial globe, invented by Nuremberg in 1492, could be referred to as a map, not just a sphere with a map wrapped around it. In Shakespeare's 68th sonnet, published in 1609, he writes, "Thus in his cheek the map of days outworn." In this case, he's saying that a true artist's face shows depth and natural aging instead of the unnatural, shallow, of later artistic styles.
One of my favorite things
By
I ever did in college.
The 17th century, Anglophones used the word map when specifically referring to images showing the entire world or large regions. Representations of seas and other bodies of water were called charts, and any geographical drawing prepared from direct observation and precise measurement was a plan. It wasn't until the late 1800s that the word map became an umbrella term for all of these diagrams. In 1853, the word cartography was first used to mean the making of charts or maps. Graphy comes from the Greek graphene, meaning to write or draw.
Most of my college work
carto
sucks.
comes from the medieval Latin word carta, which generally meant a leaf of paper, a charter, or a playing card. In the 1570s, though, the definition of cart expanded to a map for the use of navigators, and the spelling changed, giving us the modern word chart. This term for what we now call maps was used by non-English speakers far before Anglophones developed a word for it. Europeans had been creating carta since medieval times as navigational aids. 1516 saw the first carta marina, or nautical sheet, copied via printing press, and subsequently the adjective marina was dropped, leaving the word carta to refer to any geographical representation. The Dutch had been using a similar word, kaart, in the 1520s, and the 1532 dictionary, Woordenboek der Nederlandstaal, was the first to officially define the term as a sheet representing the surface of the earth or part thereof. Now that we have some basis for the etymology of the word, we can look into the modern definitions. If you were a Merriam-Webster dictionary, you'd define map, noun, as a representation, usually on a flat surface, of the whole or part of an area. Sounds pretty straightforward, but then the second definition expands that to include a representation of the celestial sphere, or part of it. The third definition adds any diagram or other visual representation that shows the relative position of the parts of something. Then, the dictionary throws in yet another definition. A map is something that represents with clarity suggestive of a map. Okay, so to Merriam-Webster, a map is any representation of an area on Earth, a representation of an area not on Earth, or a representation of a thing made of smaller things, as well as anything that isn't a representation of any of those things, but kind of seems like one. A map is anything that is, or almost is, a map. If you trust Wikipedia, and we all trust Wikipedia, a map is a symbolic depiction emphasizing relationships between elements of some space, such as objects, regions, or themes. As we've seen, throughout history, the definition of a map has become broader and broader, and the linguistic attempt to identify a single work that epitomizes the word map has been successful only at angering cartographers. If we think of a map as being only a map insofar as it shows similarities to some prototype ideal map, then we have to deal with the consequence that everything is, in some part, mappish, but only the prototype itself can be 100% a map. If instead we collect all of the definitions throughout history and assume that to be a map, something has to fit into at least one of those definitions, it would be just as difficult to name something that isn't a map. And on the opposite end, if a map has to be something that fits every single definition for a map, finding a map would be as likely as finding a live dodo bird, and cartographers would have the same credibility as astrologers. The linguist George Lakoff
map.
developed an experiment in 1978 based on the hypothesis that a prototype map representing the epitome of the term doesn't have to be a singular map by which all others are classified. Instead, he believes that for something to be classified as a map, it must align with certain prototype properties, properties that we have culturally decided make up all maps. Lakoff asked large numbers of college students and graduates to identify images as maps or not maps, and based on the result, he found 4 qualities that were the most universally present in the images his subject identified as maps. By Lakoff's definition, a map must include the scaled correspondence of an image to the world, a graphic form, a degree of semiotic abstraction, and spatial functionality. Perhaps this is the definition by which most of us identify maps, but it raises another question. Should the term map be defined by a majority of observers? Can something be a map even if no one thinks of it as a map? Or is the word itself defined only by what we perceive? Alternatively, is it up to a cartographer to decide whether or not they have drawn a map? Or can they be overruled if observers don't classify their drawing as a map? And can something be unintentionally a map? In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Albus Dumbledore jokes that he has a scar on his leg that is a perfect map of the London Underground. Can that scar really be a map if its navigational qualities are completely coincidental? When cartographers avoid defining the word map because the answer is so obvious, they aren't necessarily referring to the fact that we all have a basic understanding of how the dictionary defines a map. In truth, we all have different maps, some of which are maps only by virtue of having been mapped, or just because we use them for a map's purposes. Carl Jung's map of the soul may not look like a map, but for those who have been able to use the concept of cognitive mapping to navigate their own soul, the overlapping circles of Jung's diagram provides them information about a location without needing to physically be there, that location being the soul. One outspoken cognitive cartographer and fan of Jung's theory is Kim Namjoon of the Korean pop group BTS. Namjoon, stage name
Guys, I was a K-pop nerd for a while.
Lyrics in BTS's album Map of the Soul Persona that have made the psychological theory accessible to a wide audience. In a sense, has RM not also drawn a map by providing an artistic representation of Jung's map of the soul so that his audience can navigate it? The me that I want myself to be, the me that people want me to be, the me that you love, and the me that I create. The me that's smiling,
Naps would be
the
good.
me
That would be a good one.
sometimes in tears, vividly
Yeah, it was. I
living
don't really
each
listen to
second
K-pop
and every
anymore.
moment, even now. Persona. Couldn't these definitions of self be synonymous with the regional borders drawn on world maps? There is an inherent cartographic nature in listening to RM self-exploration. His audience has, of course, not traveled through his soul, but he has recorded his own observations and explorations to provide that information to his audience. So maybe it's a bit of a letdown that I haven't answered my own question, and have probably left you with more questions than you had this morning. The definition of a map is something that you have to decide for yourself, and perhaps no one will share your opinion that something is or isn't a map, but I hope that you come away from this with a sense of appreciation for all of the maps that guide your life, physically, emotionally, socially, and in any number of other ways. In our lives, we are constantly moving and changing our paths, but unless we are navigating that path completely at random, we're making decisions with the guidance of experiential maps. So now, as you continue on your day,
Still a nerd,
I hope
for
I've
sure.
been able to provide some insight with this presentation, which is also a map.
Yeah, that was my magnum opus of college. We're still in Q, and I still can't figure out Photoshop. Blue, maybe you are a map. Have you ever given directions to someone? Have you ever given advice to someone? You're a lot of different maps, Blue. You're the map of the human body. You're a map of all of the, your body is a map of everything that you've ever been through. I'm a map of all of the times I've baked bread because I burn myself baking bread a lot. And so I've got a bunch of like scars that are burn marks from when I've burnt myself while baking bread. And so I'm a map of all of the times I've burnt myself while baking bread, you know? And now I want to figure this out, but I still can't. My Photoshop is still dead. Does anyone know how to fix this? Guys, can I F8 quit Photoshop? What did I do? I messed it up somehow. Does anyone know how to fix this? End Creative Cloud app? Let me see about that. I just turned it on. Nope. I might have to restart my computer. Pistachio Kanafa cheesecake? Oh, that sounds really good. Hi, Ponark. How did I manage this? It's very frozen, yes. What if I open Photoshop? Doesn't do anything. Is it Galmon that's doing it? I get rid of all the Galmon stuff. Ponark, help! I fucked up. I don't know how I did this. Just clicking it so many times. Even if I actually get into NoPixel and out of queue, I'm still gonna end up being here this whole time. Can't even Alt F4 Photoshop. Bro, I've been closing it in Task Manager 1,000 times. On Apple, I could just force quit, and that just like fucked it off. I can't do that. What is end process tree? Is that a thing I can do? Can I do that? Doing this. Access denied, apparently. What? What? How have I done this? How have I done this? Someone call IT. Aren't like half of you IT people? Blue! Blue, isn't this your job? Don't you do that? And Brandon? Aren't you all IT experts? Computer people? You only fix it by making it worse? I feel like I've probably made it worse as well. Can't even Alt-Tab and delete it. Memory usage, see if I think it's just broken. Like it's just frozen. Sort by memory? What is CMD prompt? What is that? I don't have enough memory for this. Bad memory. I might have to, I'm gonna, fuck. I can't even, if I do this, I'm gonna have to restart the queue. I'm gonna restart my computer. I'm gonna restart everything.